Okay, so the first thing with my sight word unit plan was the Play-Doh. And some kids loved it, some kids hated it, just depending on the textures and feels that they liked. Most kids enjoyed it. What they would have to do is they got a laminated card that had their sight word written in big letters. And I have some videos and some pictures of them actually doing it. And they would have to say the word, sometimes spell it depending on the differentiated level. The higher ones I didn't worry about it as much because they knew it like the back of their hand. It was my lower ones that I really made it spell. That way they could say it, hear the sound spelling, and then say it again and actually create it and mold it with Play-Doh to get more of a kinesthetic vibe in there for them. So they would really have to take the Play-Doh and mold it out, and some of them actually figured out if you lay it on the table and rub it with your hand, it'll make a stick, and then you can bend the stick however you wanted. Some of them didn't. Some of them actually like picked pieces of Play-Doh out and shoved it on there. Sometimes it was unrecognizable. I tried to pick the ones in the videos and the pictures that were the most recognizable ones, and some of them just, they liked smashing the Play-Doh more than they actually liked creating the words, which is to be expected, especially in kindergarten. But overall, I think it was really, really good. There was a couple of times that we had kids that were like, I don't really want to do this. This is not for me. We would be like, well, okay, let's just talk about sight words. And then so we wouldn't actually create it. I would just sit beside him and say, all right, what's the word that so-and-so's making? That word is like. What's the word that so-and-so's over there is creating? That's the word soon. Okay, well, how do you spell soon?
Making words with Play-Doh.
Making words with Play-Doh. What's the word that you're making with Play-Doh?
Do.
Do.
I'm bad at hard words.
Serenity, you're getting ready to start. What word are you making?
No.
No. Kaylee, what's your word?
She.
She. How do you spell she?
S-H-E.
And then sometimes during these sight word things, when it was more of a downtime and they were creating their molds, we would sing Heidi sight word songs to remind them of some of the songs that they would. And sometimes I would pull out random cards and say, hey, so-and-so, what's this one?
Do you know this song that
Just to keep them actively engaged. That way it doesn't turn into an, oh, I'm just going to play with Play-Doh and get away with it. They were monitored the whole time, so it was very, very hard for a sneaky Play-Doh action to come about. But overall, I did find it very successful, and I would do this in my classroom. I do think it does need a little more monitoring. If it was kindergarten, then it would definitely have to have really close to the teacher or somebody at that station. The second part of my unit was the sight word eggs. The sight word eggs was originally found on Teachers Pay Teachers and was designed to let two kids play together. One of them would be a caller, the other would be a cook, and then they would both have to write it on a piece of paper as a team, player one, player two. My children didn't necessarily take too fondly to that. They became bored very easily. So it didn't take me long to alter the game and its expectations.
All. Spell all.
We played, instead of with two, we played up to 5, but it needed to be at least 3, so 3 to 5 players. We had a cook, a caller, and a writer, and then if we had up to 5 players, we had more writers. So in a game you could have 1 to 3 writers. And the first person to do anything was the caller. The caller would look at the eggs that are spread on the table and would pinpoint one in their brain and say the word, and then spell the word and say it again. So for example, I would look with my brain onto the table and see the word said, S-A-I-D, said, and that was the only thing that I was allowed to say. I am not allowed to point to it as a caller. I am only allowed to tell the cook about it. It is the cook's turn to find the word said on an egg somewhere on the table. Once it is found, the cook will scoop it up, use their hand as a spatula, and flip it over. If the student was having a little bit of difficulty, they were more than welcome to pick it back up when it became time for them to spell. But if they knew it, then I try to keep them to lay it back down. But it's the cook's job to make sure that the writer was able to spell the word correctly. So once the cook scooped it up and flipped it, they would have to say said, S-A-I-D. and make sure the writer was following right along. Sometimes they would catch each other on their mistakes, like, oop, your S is backwards, or that's really a B, you need to make it a D. And then other times it would be the teacher's catch, and the students would be just giggly and all that. They did a lot better at this because we would rotate. So once the writer was finished writing said, cap on the marker, stand up, rotate. And the kids got really used to that, and they liked just that little break portion of like 2 seconds where they got to stand up and just go.
Said.
Said. How do you spell said?
C
Oh, what's that?
S A I D.
S-A-I-D. Summertime. That word is what, Brayden?
Said.
Said. What's that word, summertime?
S-A-I-D. Said.
Very good. How do you say it? Say that word.
Said.
Said. Good job.
Okay, so the third portion of the unit plan was the not so Eastery sight word eggs, which was a plastic egg that had been pulled apart from its top and bottom, leaving the top and bottom separated, and then I put masking tape on the top with a sight word written on the masking tape. And they were laid out on the table with marshmallows hidden underneath, but only on a few of them. It made it more surprising and unexpected when you didn't put marshmallows underneath all of them. But the students would have to look for a word, and then they would pinpoint a word and say, okay, this is the word like. And the teacher would say, okay, yes, or no, let's try that one again. And if they got it right, they were allowed to pick up the egg and see if there was a marshmallow underneath. If there was, that's awesome. That was a great reward. If not, no biggie. There's going to be one coming around here in a minute. Don't worry, you're going to get a marshmallow before the day's in. And so they would go bounce, 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 bounce. And when it came to a student that got it wrong, we wouldn't necessarily say, no, you can't pick up that egg. You can't potentially get a reward for a marshmallow for getting it wrong. We would try to work out with the student and say, okay, so that wasn't the right answer, but we're going to figure this out. I'll give you a hint. It's either the word what, when, or there. You'd give them words that kind of were the same, but not necessarily the same. And most of the time, once you gave them those verbal cues like that, they were able to see the spelling and hear the word sound and then say immediately, that word is what. Very good. That's the word what. Now you may pick up your egg to see if they had a marshmallow underneath or if they did not. Sometimes on the bigger, harder words like there, I would put 2 marshmallows underneath, so that way when they saw the big word, they would try for it anyway, and the reward was even more awesome because they got 2 marshmallows instead of 1. We had a few students not be able to get their marshmallow on their round because they would hurry and rush and pick up the egg and then see what the word was, and if there wasn't a marshmallow underneath, then they were disappointed and they wouldn't say the word. So we had to get some rules in place of you weren't allowed to touch the egg until you had permission from the teacher. So you kind of had to point to it or put your finger on it and then say the word, and once the teacher said okay, then you could pick it up. I think that removed a lot of the stress and tension of, well, my egg doesn't have a marshmallow underneath of it, I'm not going to pick it up, and no matter what you say, I'm not going to do it. Because with them only being able to touch it, they couldn't actually pick it up. So it made it a whole lot easier on me. It was less stressful for all of us, and overall it went a lot more smoothly once the ground rules were said of don't pick it up until I say okay, and once I say okay, you're good to go. By the end of it, the kids were like, this is so awesome, we can do this again tomorrow, right? You're gonna let us do it some more? And they actually get a little upset when I tell them that we can't do it anymore because it's not Easter. So now I'm trying to figure out something that we can do with these marshmallow sight words that makes it even more awesome, that's not towards the spring bunny Easter theme. Overall, it was an excellent, excellent thing, and it was enjoyed by the kids.
Got a little marshmallow. Which one's ant? Good job. Alright, E. What you got, dude? What's that word? Say it. Spell it. S
S-O-O-N.
S-O-O-N.
Aubrey haven't played either.
What's that word? Soon.
The final portion, the fourth portion of the sight words, was the egg coloring. This was again something that my teacher wanted to gear it more towards the holiday of Easter without actually saying Easter, because we're not allowed to do that. We wanted to make it a little more towards the theme of what was out in stores right now, which is bunnies and eggs and all that fun stuff. So I found a coloring sheet on Teachers Pay Teachers that was eggs. There were 2 sheets that have 3 eggs on them, and then 1 sheet that had a super big egg. And there was a key in the corner that said, okay, the word like must be colored red, or the word what must be colored blue. So the kids not only had to see what the sight word was and where it was located, they also had to color coordinate it based on the key. Some of the kids had a little difficulty, especially when the words will and well came up. They would get so excited they'd see the W and then they'd just start scribbling and coloring instead of actually looking and seeing W-E or W-I, which we were able to fix, and some of them even caught themselves right as soon as they touched the marker on the page, but they were able to fix it later on, or they just kind of scribbled the right color over top, which was fine. They at least caught themselves. We did let them use markers instead of crayons because that was a bigger reward. They liked the markers a whole lot better than using colored pencils or crayons, and they thought that was just absolutely phenomenal that they got to use markers instead of the normal crayons that they had at their desk. Riley, what word are you coloring red?
Like
Where does it show you that you need to color that word red?
right here.
What color is the word hour?
Blue.
Blue. What about orange? What word do you color orange?
Cane.
Okay. And point to the word that says was. Very good. What color did you color that?
Green.
Green. Woohoo, good job. What do you color yellow?
Eat.
Touch the word eat. Good call. What do you color red?
Like.
Touch like. Touch another like. Keep going. Woo. What was the color that you had to color the most?
Red.
Red. What color do you think that you colored the least?
Was.
Was, what color was that?
Green.
Green. That looks pretty good to me. You want to show it to me? Big smiles. Good girl.
Overall, I am very, very pleased with the kindergarten performance in not just their sight word eggs with coloring, but overall in everything. They learned so much, and I am so very proud to say that I have been a part of their classroom experience.
I can remember when you fit in the palm of my hand. You felt so good in it, no bigger than a minute. How it amazes me, you're changing with every blink. Faster than a flower blooms, they grow up all too soon. So let them be little, 'cause they're all